All right, so welcome everybody to our presentation this evening, Ending Neck Pain. And I want to cover this topic because it is such a big deal. And 8 out of 10 people actually struggle with neck pain, either an acute episode or many people, it's a chronic concern with neck spasm, neck pain, cracking and popping, and all kinds of trouble, even going into their upper shoulders and down into their arms, and affecting many other things. So if you or someone you know is struggling with neck pain, you know that it actually really does affect your life. Restrictions and ranges of motion and stiffness. And, I see you people on the road dangerously having a stiff neck and not being able to turn properly. And you're using the hope and pray lane change technique where trying to use the mirrors but not being able to turn your neck. Yeah, and you just kind of drift over into some other lane. Depending on which way your neck is restricted, you can't actually turn to see if cars are there. So you just slowly drift in and hope and pray that you do it safely. I know, I've seen you all on the roads. So tonight we want to uncover and understand what is it exactly that is causing neck pain so that we can actually get to the bottom of correcting it and literally ending neck pain. And I want you to know that as important as it is to understand these things, we want to also help people avoid problems in the future, avoid degenerative changes in the neck and that kind of thing. And all of that is going to take action. So implementation is everything here. And so I want to ask for your commitment right now, whether you're watching this live or as a recording, to really pay attention, give it your full attention so that you can really choose what are you going to implement by the end of the workshop. What are the big ahas for you? What are the action steps that you're going to take? And so you're halfway there by showing up, but I want to take you all the way there by giving you the information you need so you can take the right action steps. So we're going to jump right into it. And I want to just also recognize that, when I give that percentage of 8 out of 10 people struggling with neck pain sometime in their life, we are having an extraordinary time in our culture right this moment in the last few months. And I actually am seeing an increase in incidence of neck pain because people have disrupted their lives and they have to now try to adapt to a very different way of living, perhaps working from home more, using devices more. And so that's one of the things that we're going to uncover here today is how are the present extra cultural stresses that we have impacting neck pain and what can we do about it? So tonight we're going to learn what causes neck pain, what you can do about it to get long-term solutions and not just get rid of the pain. And so again, this is a much more far-reaching thing than just getting rid of pain. Really, if you want a healthy life, you need to have a healthy spine, and your neck is the top part of your spine. So it will impact your entire life. So here we go. And a few housekeeping tips. First off, our next workshop next month is going to be all about ending headaches for good. And for some of you, your neck pain starts to shoot right up into your head into a headache. So if you struggle with that, we will unpack that aspect much further and much deeper on next month's workshop, which will be Wednesday, September 23rd, 6:30 p.m. If you want to attend that one, again, it's a very popular workshop. And so please register in advance so that we make sure that we have room for you. And if you do want to register, you can actually just send us a text that says headache workshop, and you send it to our office number 802-985-9850. All right, so let's go into the problems here. So check it out, tech neck, right? So I want to just get an inventory here, and I can't really see everybody, especially people that are watching this as a recording, but think about it. Take inventory yourself. How many people do you know who have a cell phone? Pretty much everybody, right? And then what about kids? How many of you have kids or know kids that have cell phones? Yeah, so quite a few. And so how about if everyone in your family has at least one cell phone? Yes. And how many people feel like everybody is just spending too much time staring at that thing? right? Yeah, we all do, and we all know it. And you probably sense that it's really not a natural thing to spend as much time as we do on cell phones and devices. So if you're thinking that it can't be good for you, you're right. And there are several reasons for it. And after tonight, you're really going to understand why and how bad it really is. And so I want to just uncover and unpack this a bit. It's gotten so bad that this phone addiction phenomenon, I actually, over the last few years, I have been describing TechNec as a pandemic, even before that word was the dominant conversation in our culture. I was already using that word to describe TechNec as a pandemic. And so it's such a widespread problem, and it's far reaching. It has serious consequences. I have to tell you, this current generation that has just been bathed in it, just growing up in it, they have trouble coming ahead for them unless they master this, unless they understand it and they reconcile it, because it really does have far-reaching and serious consequences. The health experts have come up with a name of TechNec, like literally a name for it. And you know how we talk about sitting is the new smoking. You've heard that before. Well, if sitting's the new smoking, then screens are the new crack cocaine, right? So our addiction to screens and how they impact our health, it is a big deal. The consequences are very real. And in our current scenario, we also have an additional stress. And so I want to see if I can just bring this into the picture here and bring me into the picture. So here we go. All right, so when we, in our current scenario here in our culture, we have an additional stress, which is called mask neck. So check it out. When we are using a device, we might have it in front of us and we might be looking down at it. But if we have a mask on, it interferes with our peripheral vision below us, so that when we're looking at something, we can't just look down at it. We have to tuck our head down further to look at it. And it reminds me of what I see happening in the necks of people that have bifocals, that they literally have to put their head up and down to see through their glasses. I'm seeing the same phenomenon of extra stress in the spines of people that are having to wear masks. So mask neck is definitely a very real additional stress on our bodies just from what's happening right now in our culture. All right, and so I want to make sure that you understand that that's part of what's happening in as I check people's systems and what are the things that are causing these stresses, that it definitely is one of them, mask neck. Okay, so next we are going to look at what are the things that I see in my practice every day. So certainly there is neck pain that is being complained about. There's stiffness, there's tightness, lost ranges of motion, degenerative change, arthritic changes, popping and cracking, upper extremity issues. So it literally goes right down into the shoulders and the arms, and even going up into the head as headaches. So these are some of the things that show up when I see people every day, and literally how it affects every part of your life. As I said earlier, this idea of being dangerous to drive if you have all that restriction in your lost range of motion in your neck, so you can't even look from side to side as you're driving safely. We have people that are told that they have degenerative changes and arthritis in their spine. They hear popping and cracking when they turn their neck or roll their head around. And obviously you learned from me, the upper extremity issues are definitely something that come from the neck, and hand, wrist, arm, shoulder problems and headaches. I would say 8 or 9 out of 10 issues with the upper extremity or headaches are actually coming from the neck. And when we talk about this idea of degenerative changes and arthritic changes in the spine, okay, check it out. We used to think that degenerative change, arthritic changes, were something that happened in older folks. You know, maybe you start to reach middle age, it might start to show up, and as you're aging, it gets worse and worse. And people even call it normal aging. But I have to tell you, I was astounded when I saw research a few years ago that told me that 9% of 10-year-olds, 9% of 10-year-olds have degenerative changes in their spine already starting. Now that is nothing that I have seen over the 35 years in practice. That is a new phenomenon that is maybe in the past 10 years has started to show up. So as I said, this current generation is in trouble unless we really get some powerful spinal hygiene going to prevent this degenerative change from occurring. And so again, if we look at poor posture, it can affect all of these things. It's one of the things that is associated with neck problems is poor posture. But when we also have that poor posture in the neck, it's also associated with reductions in testosterone levels and reduced serotonin. Serotonin is the feel-good hormone, right? And helps with sleep, right? And so that gets reduced. There's increasing cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. And even reduced feelings of power. Literally self-esteem is affected and it's associated with poor posture. So you might say, well, maybe the poor self-esteem causes the poor posture. It's probably a cycle, it's probably a loop, but definitely it's that forward posture that it can create that. I remember seeing a Peanuts comic strip where the theme was Charlie Brown, right? And what is it that happens with Charlie Brown when he's really depressed? His head goes right down, right? So in the comic strip, it shows Charlie Brown and his head is down, right? And he's in this depressed state. And there's Lucy with her psychology booth up. And so he's talking to Lucy and he's saying to Lucy, you know, with my head down, that's the best way to really get the most out of being depressed. Because when my head is up, I just don't get that same fulfillment of being depressed. I've got to have my head down to get that full fulfillment of being depressed. So clearly there is an association with depression and posture, or low self-esteem and posture. But again, chicken or the egg. So could it be that our poor posture could actually be driving feelings of a loss of feelings of power, reduced power? So again, very important of how this affects our entire life. So it's not just about a little neck and shoulder tension. It's about hormones, degeneration, avoiding surgeries, and feelings of power. And again, if you are somebody that is struggling with this, I just want to put it out there. I want to invite you to have a conversation with me. I'm happy to just take 10 minutes and talk down whatever concerns you have. So if you're struggling with the stiffness and you're worried about degenerative changes, or you're seeing that it's affecting your mood or your ability to sleep, or levels of energy in your body, then just text us to 802-985-9850 and just text the word consult. And what will happen is my team will reach out to you and we will schedule a time for us to talk. I'd love to just talk it down with you. It's no charge for that. I'm happy to do that because I really want to help as many people as I can with this. All right, so that's there for you if you need it. Now, Sandy was a woman that was in my practice, and before she came to Network, she was suffering from brain fog, chronic fatigue, upper back and neck pain, and she said she felt she was twice her age. And then over 4 years, she was going downhill fast. She was losing hope, as you can see, and she went to several doctors. She had a couple of different chiropractors she worked with, and she didn't really get much relief. And then once she got into care with us, she says that only a few short visits, the fog lifted. She was able to get through the day without a nap. The pain lessened a great deal. And then each week she was feeling better. And she knew that and knowing that I am going to get even better with each adjustment, she was anticipating that. And she was under care for many, many years, just not only achieving that higher level of function, but then holding on to it and protecting her gains. And so we love helping folks like Sandy in our practice. And again, if you are struggling, we would love to see if we could help you. Now, when we talk about these symptoms, neck pain is a symptom. And when things like pain, stiffness, muscle tightness, cracking and popping, lost mobility, weakness, these are all symptoms. So what are symptoms? They are communications from your body It's your body trying to tell you something is wrong. And so what is your body trying to tell you? It's trying to tell you that there is a problem, that you are moving away from health, and that there's a breakdown, that there's a stress that your body is not adapting to any longer, and that tissue is breaking down, and you're moving away from health. You are in trouble, and you need to address it. And so you need to make a change. And so the symptom has something that's underneath it that is causing it. And this is what needs to be addressed. So the symptom is just the tip of the iceberg. And so often we try to just mask or address just the symptom, but in the meantime, it's not actually getting to what the cause of the problem is, the deeper problem. And by not addressing that, we're actually maybe feeling better as we're actually getting worse. So let me ask you, that idea of your symptom, the pain, being a warning system to you, a communication from your body, is that a smart body or a stupid body? It sounds like a smart system to me, to have an alert when you're moving away from health. And that's really the way we want to think of symptoms, is that your body is smart, and to know that it's smart and know that it's trying to tell you something, it's begging you to make a change. And so we want to call the symptom a body signal instead of a symptom, because that will shift our relationship to that symptom. And now we can then interpret and respond to the body signal, and that's what's going to make all the difference in your health. So the question is, are you listening to the symptoms? Are you listening to the signals that your body is giving you and making changes so that you can stop the damage and get your body into healing mode again? Or do you try to ignore them and press on and push through it? You know, maybe it'll go away, or it's just part of aging, or, oh, these are just normal aches and pains, or other stories we tell ourselves. Or worse, do you try to stifle these warning signs with drugs, dangerous chemicals, again, only suppressing your body's communications? And so that means you might feel better temporarily while your problem is actually getting worse. So is that smart or stupid, right? So who is ready to learn a better way? Symptoms or body signals are only the tip of the iceberg, and the way that you think about symptoms will drive your choices, and that's going to drive your outcomes. So how you think about your symptoms, are you thinking about them as body signals? If you are, then you're starting to be on the right track of them being able to take action steps that are going to result in different outcomes. If you're just ignoring the underlying cause and allowing it to become a bigger issue, that's going to be more of a problem. So let's talk about this idea of symptoms. Let's give it a little bit more of a reference or a context. So this is a continuum. And if you, really it's important that you grasp this concept if you're going to have any chance of reaching your health potential. So if everybody here wants to reach your optimum health potential, I want you to really listen up here. So when we look at this health continuum, right, everybody in the room is falling somewhere on this range. On the left-hand side, we can see that premature death, that's dying early. On the right-hand side, we can see high levels of health and wellness, optimal function. In the middle is where we see a place that we would say is a, I would say false wellness, where there may not be symptoms here, but it's not necessarily health. So we have a sick zone, we have a not sick zone, and we have a healthy zone. All right, so there's 3 zones here. And I think one of the problems is that many people may actually be living in the not sick zone and calling it health. And that's going to get them into trouble, because if you are in the middle here in the not sick zone, you're very close to where symptoms start to show up. And then next thing you know, your function is already deteriorating and you're moving towards early death. You're losing function. So the first question is, where are you right now on this illness wellness continuum? And the next question is, because everyone is going to be moving in one direction or the other, nobody's standing still. So the next question is, what direction are you headed in? Towards health or away from it? And everybody's moving at different speeds as well. Some are moving faster towards sickness and disease, and some slower. And so there's a velocity towards health or away from it. And there's also a momentum, which is mass times velocity. So there's some momentum to it, and it's either on your side and working for you, or it's working against you. So my job as a chiropractor, sometimes my first job is to just overcome the momentum that is pushing somebody in the direction towards illness, towards disease. And we have to just slow down that momentum before we turn it around and start to gain some momentum so they start moving towards health. And that's, sometimes that's my first job. So understanding the symptoms as body signals or alarms, learning how to speak body, the innate intelligence of your body that is sending you signals, so learning how to interpret those signals is key. Symptoms are what are telling us what direction we're heading. They tell us if we're moving away from health. And so I want you to start thinking about times when perhaps there was an increase or a flare-up in your symptoms. Oftentimes that's associated with an increase in inflammation, a flare-up of inflammation. And so if that's what is happening, then you might get more swelling, more pain, and as the symptoms go up, if you behave and take action to change the behavior so that you're reducing inflammation, you're going to start to see that the symptoms will go down. So when inflammation goes up, because your behaviors are inflammatory behaviors, then if you don't do anything about it, we're going to expect inflammation to go up and pain and discomfort and symptoms to go up. But as inflammation goes down, it's usually related to symptoms going down because your behaviors have gone down. So it's all based on behavior. Oh, I feel more pain in my neck today or more numbness in my arm. Okay, well, let's stop and look at this. What have you done that has increased your inflammation? Trauma, bad habits, right? Those are the questions that I'll be asking you. And so if you say, oh, I feel better, my range of motion's better, my arm is better, my symptoms have improved, so inflammation's gone down. What changes have I made that has dropped the inflammation? And so there's where the innate intelligence of your body is talking to you. So if you understand how to interpret these signals, then you can make the changes that are needed to get what you want. So making better decisions leads to better choices and better behaviors. And again, always asking, what is your objective? What is your objective? Is it just temporary symptom relief? Maybe a drug could do that. Or is it to regain your health and function? And then a drug is not going to do that because a drug is just going to mask the symptoms. All right, so the way you think, your belief system is going to organize your behaviors, and that's going to then lead to the outcomes or the results. All right, and so many times people are taught in our culture that symptoms are the best indicator of health. Well, how I feel will be telling me how healthy I am. Oh, I feel good, I'm healthy. If I don't feel good, that's when I'm unhealthy. But you can see in this illness-wellness continuum, symptoms show up in one part of this paradigm, but the not sick zone is not necessarily the healthy zone, even though there's no symptoms. And so if I feel good, I must be healthy. If I feel bad, I must be sick. Really now? Okay, let's unpack that idea here. So feeling versus function. So this is what science tells us about symptoms. You can see that there is feeling versus function. This is looking at the three parts of the central nervous system. There's the motor nerves that control the muscles, the autonomic nerves that control the organs, the blood vessels and the glands. And then there's the nerves, the sensory nerves that are feeling things. They might feel temperature, hot and cold. They might feel proprioception, posture, knowing where your body is in space. Or they may be all about perceiving pain. Now, when you feel pain, that is only 10% of all of your nervous system's functions. It's only 10%, less than 10% of the nerves feel pain. And so that means that this is most commonly happening without pain or other obvious symptoms. Do you see? So you can have problems in your nervous system and not have any pain. When we look at people that have degenerative changes in their spine and we look at the x-rays and we can see the degenerative change, many times people had no idea that that was happening because it was happening without pain, because only 10% of the nervous system feels pain. So the most common symptom of spinal problems is no symptom at all. And that's true for the most common health issues as well. So think about it. What are the early symptoms of heart disease? Now, most people, the first thing they think of as far as a symptom with heart disease is late heart disease, which is a heart attack. when you're actually experiencing a heart attack, that's late heart disease. That's not early heart disease. And so more often than not, it might even be their, not just their first symptom, but their last symptom, because it kills them. So what are the early symptoms of heart disease? There are no symptoms that you feel. What are the early symptoms of diabetes? You don't feel it. How about cancer? You don't feel it. Even the most ubiquitous health problems like tooth decay, by the time you have the symptoms, right, of most dental issues, it's already a problem, right? So is symptoms an early sign or a late sign that you have a problem? And so why is it that we are taught to judge our health and manage our health based on symptoms, right? Most of the time, the people that come to see me, the thing that gets them to come in is a symptom. So we're grateful that they had the symptom because it got them in there. But once we start to uncover what has accumulated over time, and we discover that those problems were there before the symptoms started, then the first thing most parents want to do when they figure that out is they want to get their kids checked, because they realize that maybe their problems started when they were kids and they weren't feeling it. All right, so that is this idea of feeling versus function. So we need a better way. We can't just rely on this idea of thinking symptoms are the way to manage our health. We need a better way. So who's with me on this? We need a better definition of health. And so if we look at this better approach to managing our health, a better lens through which to view our health, we need to ask better questions, and we need to have a better set of ground rules. So we need a better premise. And this is what my premise is that I work from. The first piece is, and there's 5 pieces to this. The first one is that healthy is normal. Healthy is normal. It's normal to be healthy. Healthy is normal. We are designed to be healthy. Your body is smart, right? And we should treat it that way and not try to stifle its communications with all kinds of dangerous chemicals. We should be listening to our body's signals. The nervous system is the master system because it is the communication system that runs all the other systems in our body. The digestive system, the immune system, the respiratory system, the circulatory, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, reproductive, it runs everything. And so it's so important that it actually has a suit of armor protecting it, right? The helmet of the skull and the spinal column protecting the spinal cord. The spinal column is a series of joints that protects nerves and allows for movement, right? And then we know that modern life is unnaturally stressful. And right now, these days, it's 10x unnaturally stressful. Look at the unnatural ways that we are living right now, right? More than ever. So if modern life is unnaturally stressful, and I'm wondering how many people, I wish I could see you raise your hands right now, because usually when I do, I see, yeah, unanimous, everybody agrees. It is stressful. And I oftentimes will ask people, you know, even if you love your life, it's moving fast and it's stressful, because that's what's happening in my life, right? So how many people here have the experience that this year is the most stressful year they've ever had, right? Hands down across the board. Even people that have just like checked out and not participated in the rat race and just been home, people still report to me that there's this background level of stress. And so it comes at us from every angle. So it is the thoughts that we have, that's where most people think of stress, but it actually is in 3 dimensions. It's thoughts, toxins, and traumas. It's physical stresses, chemical stresses, and emotional stresses. So we think of these as the 3 T's, right? Thoughts, toxins, and traumas. So I want to now explore the 3rd category of traumas so that you can start to understand how we start to begin to get problems in our spine. Macro trauma is the big ones. Those are the big traumas that can cause neck pain. Car accidents, sports injuries, work accidents, slips and falls. Obviously, these will stress and damage the body, no question about it. But if we zoom in on the even bigger risk factors in modern life, the real culprit behind so much of the neck issues that we see every day is micro traumas, the small stuff. Now, I know you've all heard the expression, don't sweat the small stuff. Yeah, small stuff like, okay, coronaviruses, Ebola viruses, bullets, right? Tiny little deer ticks, that's all small stuff. Yeah, so that premise can be a very dangerous one sometimes. Don't sweat the small stuff. There are some small things that we actually do need to be concerned about, and especially here. So this idea of micro traumas, That expression, don't sweat the small stuff, does not apply to microtraumas. These microtraumas, the postural stresses that are associated with sitting in front of a computer monitor, a laptop, a tablet, or a mobile phone, and then you add a mask to that, right? It's a phenomenon that is collectively known as tech stress. And it's one of the most serious health threats of the modern world. Now, right now, we have a big health threat of the modern world that we're calling this pandemic. But I will tell you that I think the global lockdown and mask use is actually causing more health problems because it's affecting what's happening in our neck. And I would say that where this is going right now in our culture, we are setting ourselves up for more stress and more health concerns from these postural stresses, these microtraumas. Right now, like the CDC tells us, 80% of people will encounter COVID-19 and have mild to no symptoms. And I think it's only 0.26% of the population is going to have a fatal experience with COVID-19. But I will tell you that 80% of the people during this pandemic and the drastic measures that have been taken that has increased the postural microtraumas is going to have more of a health impact than the virus will ever have. And I'm going to stand by that. I know that's a bold statement. I'm going to stand by that because of what I'm seeing right here in the practice. So let's unpack this a little bit. This is what the science of biophysics is telling us. So if we look at this idea of posture, when the head is right over the shoulder, right? This is what healthy posture should look like. The head balanced over the shoulder balanced over the pelvis over the ankles, everything lined up. The beautiful curves that are like a spring in the spine, that's what's going to protect the spinal column. And it's going to be given the spine. And when I say protects the spinal column, it's also protecting the spinal cord. Because if we want to have a healthy spinal cord and nervous system, we have to have a healthy spine. And the discs are the spacers in between the bones that allow the nerve roots to come out and have room to breathe as they come out from between the bones. And the curve is actually protecting the discs to keep them large and healthy. And that keeps the space for the nerves to breathe and allows them to carry the messages between the brain and the body so you can be healthy and healing. And all of that is happening across the nerve roots that are protected by the spinal column. So the head over the shoulders, shoulders over the pelvis, pelvis over the ankles, that's what's protecting this nervous system, which is protecting your body and protecting your life. Now the human head generally weighs about 12 pounds. If we put a screen in front of someone or a book or a meal or a laptop or an iPhone or an iPad, you can picture it, that head starts to drift forward. And you get forward head posture. And here's where physics tells us for every inch that the head goes forward of the shoulder, we start doubling the weight of the head. And we measure that in newtons is the measurement. So the stress on the cervical spine, you can see it goes to from 12 pounds to 32 pounds to 42 pounds, the further out in front the head is from the shoulder. Now think of it, a bowling ball or a 15-pound dumbbell, if you were holding that close to your body and then you start to hold out in front of you, you might hold it close to your body and get yourself set up ergonomically so that you could hold that there for 30 minutes or so, right? But if you hold it out in front of you, oh my gosh, you probably couldn't hold it for 10 minutes like that, even though it's the same weight. So imagine the stress that is put on the base of the cervical spine, the base of the neck, as the head goes forward. And this not only leads to tight and fatigued muscles, but it puts a structural insult onto the spinal column and misaligns the joints. And that then causes damage to the soft tissues, and that causes swelling, and that leads to something that's called subluxation. Okay, everybody say subluxation. I know I can't hear you because I've got you all on mute. Let's say it out loud, subluxation, right? So these stressors, these sources of stress, the physical, chemical, and emotional stressors, there's the macro big traumas like the car accidents and sports injuries, but then there's also these micro small traumas, the tech neck and the postural bad habits. They create a condition called subluxation. And subluxations occur where it causes, where we have joint misalignment is the first characteristic. So when the joints misalign, it's going to create some soft tissue damage. That soft tissue damage is going to lead to inflammation. That inflammation is going to lead to nerve irritation. Can you see how, in this case, the disc is inflamed? It's putting pressure on the nerve, the yellow nerve is coming through there. And so there's going to be irritation to that nerve. Now, when that nerve starts to get irritated, the more you move this joint, it's going to irritate it more and more. So your smart body is going to spasm the muscles to strap this joint down so it stops moving. Now, the disc is going to get all of its nutrients in and out the way a sponge has water go in and out of it by squeezing it and releasing. So when we squeeze down the disc, it pushes the toxins out. And when we release that, it sucks the nutrients in. That's how discs get nutrients and toxins in and out. They don't have a really good blood supply, so it's this thing called imbibition that does that. But when you strap this joint down, there's a loss of imbibition. And that is going to lead over time to deterioration in this joint. This disc is going to start to deteriorate. Not only that, but when we have joint fixation, meaning this joint is not moving, it is strapped down, all the nerves are carrying signals up to the brain, telling the brain what's happening in the body. And if the brain stops getting the signals of healthy, normal range of motion and movement from that joint, it actually is sent as a stress signal. Oh my goodness, something's wrong, this joint is not moving. And that stress signal actually elevates stress hormones in our whole body. It sets up a stress response in the body. Cortisol levels go up. Now, do you remember what we said earlier when we talked about how poor posture seems to be related to lower testosterone, higher cortisol, lower serotonin, feelings of, lost feelings of power, less power, right? And so that's because of the stress hormones that are flooding the brain, which then will impact the rest of the body. So can you see how far reaching this is, that having a subluxation in the neck actually has global consequences through the whole body? So when we look at this idea of a stress response, what is actually happening with a stress response? Let's cover this quickly here. So remember, if you imagine a tiger, right? A tiger shows up, what is your body going to do to save your life? You're going to go into a rapid stress response, and that means your blood pressure is going to go up, your heart rate goes up, your muscle tone goes up, meaning getting ready to run and fight. Your digestion goes down. Your digestion is down-regulated. It's not a good time to have lunch when a tiger shows up, because you're going to be lunch if you don't run. So digestion is down-regulated. Reproduction is down-regulated. Not a good time to have babies, right? When the tiger is chasing you. Serotonin levels also are down-regulated. Not a good time to sleep when a tiger is chasing you. Our sensory systems become on hyper alert, right? We go into tunnel vision, our acute hearing, right? Everything is on alert. Fear and anxiety go up because we, again, are in alert mode. Our insulin sensitivity also is going to be affected, because we actually want lots of blood sugar happening, because we want to get that blood sugar out into the muscles where we can be running and getting fuel for those muscles so we can run and fight. So that insulin sensitivity is going to be affected, and blood sugar is going to go up. Decrease in the HDLs and increase in the LDLs. So it's the reverse of what we think of as healthy, because those LDLs are going to be there to make hormones and to heal us if we have an injury. We'll use those. And the cholesterol levels go up because cholesterol is used for repairing tissue. So if we get a scar or a blood clot, clotting factors go up as well. And our immune response is going to be downregulated. Immune system is a very not economical, it's a very expensive system to run as far as energy goes. So we will downregulate the immune system, put it on hold, so that after the tiger leaves, if we're injured, that's when we're going to need that immune system to heal us up. But while we're fighting the tiger, all resources have to go into fight or flight. All right, so this is an adaptive physiology that is beautifully designed for when the tiger actually is there, for that very short duration when we actually have to run or fight a tiger. The problem is that people are living for hours, days, weeks, months, years in a stress response. And now we're going to have trouble, right? If you see how this is described, it literally sounds like a heart attack about to happen, right? And so we can see that this adaptive physiology, literally, this is chemistry that is changing in our body. And it's far-reaching and has devastating consequences because of the stress hormones in the body over a prolonged period of time. It's great if the tiger's there and we can get away, and then we can go into rest and repair, but it's deadly if we are constantly in this state, and it's increasing the load on your body. It creates an adaptive situation that leads to sickness and disease. Like, this is what drives heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity. All those downstream consequences are the result of having ongoing subluxations. If the subluxation is ongoing, it's going to be driving that stress response. All right, and so again, if we look at subluxations, remember that one of the features of a subluxation is this nerve irritation. The nerve irritation, so the macro micro traumas are what are causing the damage to the spine and the connective tissues, the ligaments and muscles and tendons, your spinal joints. They can also, and again, it can happen in the extremities as well, where it's more significant. The trauma that creates nervous system stress and interference in communications changes the information that's going to and from the body and the brain. So when there's nerve irritation, right, if you have misalignment of the vertebrae, putting pressure on the nerve, the communication between the brain and the body is interfered with. And that means the information going to and from the body and the brain is altered, it's distorted. And that means it's going to affect healthy functioning and healing. That's what a subluxation is, when there's a disturbance in the flow of messages between the brain and the body. So with subluxations, the other part of it is the arthritis. Arthritis, joint fixation, and degeneration. Now, this is really remarkable when you understand how this works, because when we have an alteration of the proper alignment of the vertebrae, remember, all that soft tissue is attached to the bones and it's tugging on the bones. And when it tugs on the bones, it's going to affect the alignment. So when we remember, what you feel is only 10%. So when we think of the functional aspect, right? Less than 10% of the nerves are feeling pain. And that means that most commonly subluxations are happening without pain or any other obvious symptoms. So the most common symptom of subluxation is no symptom at all, right? And yet it could be affecting our function. So when we look at the autonomic nervous system, that's the nerve supply to all the organs. So we have our central nervous system, which is the spinal cord and the brain. And that is sending messages over the peripheral nervous system, the communication system that carries the messages out to the organ systems. If we have interference, just like a fuse box, where we have interference if a fuse is blown, right? If that circuit breaker blows, then there's no more messaging going out to that room of the house through those wires. And so a subluxation is altering the flow of messages from the brain to the body, and from the body back up to the brain. And it's also sending an alert signal that puts the body into a stress response because it's aware that there's something wrong here. And so again, the organs, the only way the organs are able to function properly is if the brain is controlling them through the nervous system. So just like in a house, instead of wires going to utilities in different rooms, they're going to organ systems, and not just muscles, going to the organs as well. Now, when we have joint misalignment, soft tissue damage, inflammation, muscle spasms, all these joint fixations, arthritis, those nerves go into the upper body. So we literally have nerves that come from the spine into the shoulder and down into the arm, all the way down to the fingers. Those are the nerves, and that can affect shoulder and arm and elbow problems, wrist and carpal tunnel problems, hand problems, tingling, numbness, weakness of grip strength. And what's so interesting is they actually have studies that show that when there's a loss of grip strength, it's related to an increase in all causes of mortality, meaning if you have a weak grip strength, you have more likeliness that you're going to die an early death of all causes. And I think that must be related to the fact that grip strength loss is going to be associated with loss of function in the neck. And that's where all the control centers are for all the organ systems as well. And so we know that the common result in symptoms of the body, or body signals that we're seeing, like stiffness and loss of range of motion in the shoulder and the arm, is coming from problems in the neck, subluxations in the neck. So if you are struggling with any kind of trouble with that upper extremity, again, I'd love to talk it down with you. Just text us consult to 985-9850, our number, and I'd love to just sit down and talk it through with you and see if we can help. All right. So when we look at subluxations, remember, again, I talked about this idea of degenerative change. So when the joints get out of alignment and it's damaging the healthy tissue, it swells and it puts pressure on the disc and the nerve root, and then that can even put pressure on the spinal cord itself. We can see degeneration on an X-ray, and this breakdown is associated with degeneration from long-standing subluxations that wear down the joint, just like a tire out of alignment is going to wear down faster. This X-ray here shows how long the subluxations may have been there. So when we see the spine here, we see this is the jaw, this is the back of the head. And so we want to have a beautiful forward curve. In this case, you can see this is a reverse curve in the spine. And we can see the bones here. We can see the discs in between the bones. The nerves are coming out of these holes right here in between the bones. And if you look right here, where is the disc? It's broken down, it's degenerated. And you can see there's kind of points coming out on these vertebrae and points here. Those are bone spurs. And so that literally is a degenerative arthritic process that has happened here. And the X-rays show how long the DJD and the vertebral subluxations, the degenerative joint disease and vertebral subluxations have been in the body. It shows the trauma history and the bad habits, how they have accumulated over time. The same way a hunter tracks an animal in the woods, this is telling a story of this person and how their lifestyle traumas and bad habits have been accumulating in their spine over time. And so when we do our exams, oftentimes we may request imaging and getting some X-rays because we really want to see how long has this problem been here, how much degenerative change may have already occurred. So remember, the loss of the curve is going to change the gravitational stress, which is going to jam the disc, and then it's going to pull on the bones abnormally. And because the bones are living tissue, when the soft tissue, the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, when they're tugging on the bone in an abnormal way, that bone living tissue is going to grow bone where the tug is placed on it, where it's being stressed. And that's what creates the bone spurs. So the muscle and ligament stress from the altered biomechanics is now showing some disturbing new findings. And this is an amazing thing that has just shown up in the last year. We had this research show that the muscles on the back of the neck that are tugging on the skull, they were actually seeing spurs showing up on the skull. Check this out here. This report showed that horn-like growths on the back of the skull are coming from increased phone and computer use. I got to show you these pictures. You're going to be astounded here. And so what they did is in this study is they found, by looking at 1,200 different subjects, they found in the 18 to 30-year-olds, 41% of them had these growths showing up, horns on the back of their skull. So usually you're going to have your skull coming down like this, and there might be a little bit of a bump here, like a little rounded bump. That's called the external, it's called the external occipital protuberance, right? That may be there just as a normal anatomical landmark. But this kind of a horn, that definitely is something that has grown as an adaptation over time, because these muscles that are so stressed because of the loss of the curve in the neck and the forward head carriage, all these muscles are working harder and they're pulling and pulling all day long on this bone, and it's developing, the bone is growing out this horn. We have a horn in the back of our heads that's growing out, and it is found in 41% of millennials, right? So millennials are the first generation that had so much increased screen and device use than any other generation. And so in this study where they had 1,200 subjects, the subjects ranged all the way up to 86 years old. They didn't see this showing up in the older people. They saw it mostly in the younger people. And this is all from tech neck posture. The researchers stated that it's raising a concern about the future musculoskeletal health of this young adult population, and that there needs to be more prevention and intervention through postural improvement and education. Like, we need some spinal hygiene being taught here. And so again, this is a big concern. It's from that forward head carriage. And we see other ways this shows up, like tight hips from sitting too much, forward head posture, working at computers. And now we're seeing this horn-like projection from the skull. And so it's literally impacting our physical and functional human design. So this is one of the examples, and here's another one that showed up, right? So this is an enlargement of it. So this is the first one I showed you. Here's an enlargement of this second one here. You can see it growing right here. And again, see how there's a loss of the curve here. Let me go back. See how there's a loss of the curve. Loss of the curve, right? And you can see bone spurs showing up in through here as well. Here's a big bone spur, bone spurs, right? And then here's another one where, again, it's forward. The head is so far forward. Look at the hunching of the back that's happening here. And then you can see a little reversal right in through this area. So these muscles are tugging, and there's, again, another spur showing up right there, right? Isn't that incredible? Like, oh my gosh, who wants a horn growing out of the back of their head? Okay, so when we look at subluxations, what areas of the spine do we see responsible for the subluxations? Yes, indeed, it's going to be all of these cervical vertebrae, C1 through C7, but we're also finding more and more of the subluxations in the upper back, T1 through T5, are also part of this whole neck pain problem. It's actually coming from the upper back as well. And that's, again, because of the people that are on devices and the tech neck that's happening. All right, and so, again, you just have to remember that lifestyle habits, micro traumas, it's posture that is leading to the subluxations. Poor posture is leading to those subluxations. So check it out. Like, who do you know? Anybody you love, someone you know that is spending way too much time on devices, right? So I just want you to know that 45 degrees of the head forward when you're using a smartphone is the most common position of people that are texting on a smartphone is 45 degrees. And that means their head that was 13 pounds is now costing them 49 pounds of stress to their spine and nervous system. This poor posture is associated with a reduction in the testosterone levels, reduced serotonin, increased cortisol, reduced feelings of power. Remember, we covered that, right? So the average person spends 2 to 4 hours a day with their heads tilted forward for reading and texting on their smartphones. That's 700 to 1,400 hours of excess abnormal cervical spine stress per year. And high school students may even be spending an extra 5,000 hours in poor posture per year. And now you can see why they are getting these horns on the back of their head because of the stress that's being pulled on them. But the biggest concern is not the bony growth here, it's the stress on the nervous system that is happening with posture like this. And so again, the average hours spent on a device in this study was not even during a pandemic. Imagine what it is now, right? And here you go. This is your way of, oh, there's no stress at all if the head just falls right off. Now, not the best, not a good long-term solution, maybe a good short-term solution, not a good long-term solution. All right, so I'm thinking of somebody I know who is in the practice. And so they were first experiencing extreme pain in their neck, their shoulder, their arm, and their hand. It was going down the right side. And they also weren't sleeping very well and actually not breathing well with their sleep. They were struggling with chronic fatigue. They couldn't drive, and driving was part of their work. They couldn't get their work done. They couldn't play ball with their boy, right? It was affecting every aspect of their life. And they found us on Facebook. We had a notice on Facebook and some education on Facebook in our videos, and they found us through Facebook. So they came in, we did an exam with them so we could really understand what was going on. And based on the exam, I could see that it looked like I could help. And so I gave them recommendations, and they followed the recommendations. They came in for care, and what do you know? Now they're able to work. They've started exercising, excuse me. They started exercising. They're getting their energy back. They're playing ball with their kid. Their kid loves the changes that they're having. They don't have any more brain fog. So literally their life is transforming. It really wasn't about just improving the pain or getting rid of the pain. Really, they are having a transformation in their health. And so I'm so pleased with the results that we're getting. And again, what if this person had never had the pain? They might have continued to go on having degenerative change driving in their spine, right? Continuing in their spine. But now we have the alert, their smart body said something's wrong, you need to change something. It just laid them down like they couldn't do anything. They had to make a change. And now we're actually helping them to have the best life possible. And their future is a very different trajectory now because we're going to be able to get their spine healthier, stop that degenerative change, even reverse some of that damage and get them right back on track so that in future years, they're going to have a healthier longevity because they're going to have a healthier spine and healthier nervous system. All right. So again, when we talk about this tech neck, it is a big deal. It really does cause problems. So if this is you or someone that you love, you know, what can be done about it? So with neck problems, remember that it's not only the upper extremity issues, it also can cause headaches. So again, you know who you are and you know people that are struggling with headaches. It's time to get serious about these issues because they are correctable. We do get excellent results with these problems. So let's talk about how do we get these results. We use a three-legged stool as a model of how we get our best results. So the first leg of the stool is we have to stop the bad habits that cause the subluxations in the first place. So breaking the bad habits with posture is a big deal because let's say that they come in, they get adjusted on a regular basis, they follow the recommendations for the adjustments, but they don't change their poor posture habits and their texting habits and their screen use, right? We're not going to cover ground in the same way. So this is a program that when we work together, we have three legs of the stool because it's a done with you program, not a done for you program. The second leg of the stool is adding specific exercises that are going to strengthen the damaged tissues specifically for your problem. And I'm going to show you some ones that are really good for folks that struggle with neck pain. And then adding the specific chiropractic adjustments to realign and establish healthy normal motion and function and reconcile the adverse effects of the bad habits like the tech neck. So for folks that do go through our program of care, they get results. And so I'm thinking of another fellow that came in and he actually just saw the office. It was near his workplace. And so he came in because he had been getting chiropractic care, but it was less convenient. And he thought, oh, maybe it's just easier for me. Well, when he came in, the chiropractor that he had been working with was more symptom-based. So get adjusted now and then when symptoms flare up, but they weren't really looking at this whole idea of the posture and getting the spine as healthy as possible. And so this fellow was at a point where he had intense neck pain. It was radiating into his arm and his upper back. He was having trouble sleeping. He couldn't work. He had two small kids he had to manage. And of course, this is during the pandemic when the kids weren't even at school, they were at home. He had to be a teacher for them as well. And he was in so much pain and he could hardly even concentrate, never mind trying to care for his kids and be the teacher for his kids. So he started getting under care. He was getting some really nice results. And then because of the COVID situation, he thought he had to pause care. And so he stopped coming in because he didn't understand that we actually were still open because we're essential services. So he paused his care for a little while. He just wasn't sure what was going on. And I understand. I mean, there's so much unknown here. So he paused his care and he had a flare up. And so finally, it was just so extreme. He called us back and he says, can I come in? I'm like, absolutely, come right in. And so he got back under care. We got it all back under control. And then he was able to get back to work, to take care of his kids. And he actually started working with a personal trainer. His shoulder function improved. And he even added yoga to his lifestyle as well. So big success story there. And again, we had to do the exam to make sure that we understood what was going on for him and whether or not we could help. And then we gave him the recommendations. And again, those recommendations were that three-legged stool. So it wasn't just getting adjusted. It was also him doing specific exercises and helping him break the bad habits as well, which he did great with, and that's how we got the great results. So again, those are the results that he got. And so TechNec, again, it's all about breaking the bad habits. So I want to just cover a few really best practices for you in regards to some of the postural challenges with TechNec. So first off, if you are using a device like a smartphone, what I've found is, I'm just going to bring this over here so you can see me. When you're using a cell phone, most often, again, we see people are in this bent forward posture. And in that bent forward posture, right, you lose track and you're working and you're texting and you're looking down. So when you're using your cell phone, I want you to start to get into a habit. The easiest thing to do is to lift up your arm and take a fist from your other hand and stick it right into your armpit. And when you do that, it kind of holds your arm up, and now your phone is going to be in exactly the right place. So fist in the armpit is one of the ways to reconcile that poor posture for TechNec. Fist in the armpit, okay? The next thing to think about is maybe getting a standing desk for at work, or if you're working from home, set up a standing desk that is ergonomically correct. And I've got some videos that go into greater detail with that. And then when you think about driving in your car, many people, when they drive, they have the seat reclined. And then when you recline the seat, what has to happen to your head? It has to be bent forward. So when you are driving, I want you to bring your seat as close up to 90 degrees as possible so that your head can be right over your shoulder. Now we have a problem in a lot of cars because the headrest is designed for subluxated people with poor posture. Did you ever notice that? The headrest is forward because most people have this posture. And the headrest, to be effective, has to be 1 to 2 inches away from your head so that if you get rear-ended, your head is stopped when it goes back. So what I want you to do is either take the headrest out and turn it around so that it's still going to be 1 to 2 inches from your head. That's where it's going to be effective, 1 to 2 inches from your head. If you can't do that with your headrest, you want to put a pillow behind you. And so we have a pillow, the brand or the style of it, it's called the Jazz pillow, and it's actually ergonomically set up to fit into the small of your back. You actually blow air into it. And when you put it right behind your spine, it actually helps to reinforce the proper curves in your spine, but it also takes up some space so that it's going to reconcile the fact that the headrest is pushed forward. Okay, so again, you want the seat as close to 90 degrees when you're driving so that your head, center of your head is over your shoulder, shoulder is over your hips. And you want to be thinking the same thing with ergonomics with your desk. So if you are going to sit, you want to be sitting so you have great posture so that the head is over the shoulders, okay? And then when you're watching TV, that kind of thing, again, you just want to be upright rather than slunk back in a recliner or something like that. You want to pay attention to that. Now for sleeping, we want to make sure you have the proper pillow that's again going to support the proper curves in the spine. So the proper pillow this is my favorite pillow. And I love this pillow because again, it's supporting proper curves in the spine. We want that forward curve. So this pillow literally has a firmer dowel right in the middle that is going to cradle the neck. And if you do your exercises to prepare the spine for sleep beforehand so you get the disc supple, then when you lie down on it in this way, this is going to help to reinforce this proper curve. So I love the proper pillow. And it's also designed to be on the sides. If you turn onto your side, it's going to support your neck on your side as well. So on your back, your head goes right into this, this pit in the middle. And when you go on your side, you go on the edge, and that's boosted up so that you can keep your spine straight as you're lying on your side. So it's not tipped one way or the other. It's in line with the rest of your spine. Okay, very good. So now some people, you know, I've had people that take a swimming noodle. You know what I mean by that? When you go swimming and they have these foam noodles and they just cut up the noodle and stick that underneath. Other people, I've taught people how to roll up a towel so that you can put that underneath as well. So those are some tools. And again, I have videos that describe in more detail how to fold that towel properly. All right, great. Now, I want to address this idea of inflammation. So if you do have neck pain, and chances are you also have inflammation, then there are some important supplements that can help to reconcile that inflammation. And so omega-3s are important here. So many of you are aware that chronic pain is caused by chronic inflammation. And so not many people know that it's the imbalance of essential fatty acids that can cause your body to have this chronic inflammation as well. And the two essential fats in your body are the omega-3s and the omega-6 oils. So to keep inflammation under control, they should be at a 1-to-1 ratio, no more than a 1-to-4 ratio. And that means 1-to-4, meaning 1 omega-3 to up to 4 omega-6s, but ideally it's going to be 1-to-1. The American diet is more like the chart on the left, where we have 1-to-30 or 1-to-20. Those are very common ratios to have. And so when it's inflammatory, right, that's going to be more pain, and anti-inflammatory is going to be less pain. So omega-3 oils are found in fish like salmon, sardines, nuts, seeds, and grass-fed meats. Omega-6 grains are going to be in breads, pasta, dairy, conventional meats that are fed corn, that kind of thing. So we really want to strive to reach the 1-to-1 ratio that's shown on the right. And again, it can be 2-to-1, 3-to-1, as much as 4-to-1 is still going to work. So who here would rather use a natural approach to manage pain and inflammation, right, rather than going to medications, which is what most people do in our conventional model. And again, inflammation can be 10 times worse if you're out of balance with your omegas. And that also can lead to drive heart disease, digestive problems, poor concentration, and that kind of thing as well. So how do you know the right fish oil to use? There are some guidelines that I like to share with folks when we pick the right fish oil. So first, there's a visual test that you can use. The visual test means that you're just going to look at the oil, and a healthy oil is going to be pure. It should be clear, not cloudy. And so you literally can open it up if it's in a gel cap, or if it's a liquid form, you can look at the liquid. So use the visual test first. The bite test is you're going to bite into it, and you're going to look at, observe the smell and the taste. And so, of course, it's going to taste a bit like fish, but it should not have a rancid taste to it. And you will quickly know if it's rancid. So you want to make sure that it's fresh. You can also look at the label and make sure that it has the right expiration date. And also just look at what is it being stabilized with? What are the antioxidants that are being used to stabilize it? Vitamin E, rosemary, lemon oil, astaxanthin are good ones that are healthy versions of things that can stabilize it. All right, so those are things to look at. And people often ask me, well, should I use a liquid or a capsule? And the best way to decide on that is really what are the parameters in your life. So if you need a high dose, if you really need to ramp it up, the liquid is a little easier way to get that in. If you have any trouble swallowing capsules, of course, the liquid's going to be easier. And for infants and toddlers, the liquid's going to be the easiest one. Otherwise, though, the lowest oxidation, it's going to last a bit more shelf life, is in the capsule. And if taste is troublesome for you, there are a few that I found that the taste is okay, but some of them it's pretty fishy. So the capsules make it a little easier as far as taste goes, if that's troublesome for you. Now, there are some other nutritional supplements that can help with inflammation as well. And I love these products, the Turmeric Forte. It's amazing. Turmeric is wonderful for helping deal with inflammation. And this is one of the most popular supplements that we carry, is this Turmeric Forte. Boswellia is another one that's very good because it does have turmeric in it, but also has frankincense in it. And this one can be very good, especially for osteoarthritis or joint concerns. And then people are exploring the use of CBD and hemp oils. So there's a hemp oil complex that a lot of people love. And so I like to test people for all these things, but these are some of the ones that test really strong for people. There is one other CBD oil that I like. It's called Verum. And again, this is one of the ones that tests strong in my practice. I will tell you that I have been given lots and lots of samples of CBD, and I have been testing so many of them. And over again, the hemp oil complex from Standard Process and the Verum Gold are the ones that consistently will test the strongest. This Verum, they actually have a special going. So if you want a free sample, next time you come into the office, you can ask us. We have some free samples in the office. Or if you're not coming into the office, just text Verum to our number and we'll get you some samples. They also have a special online. If you go to VerumBiz /Wellspring Market, there's a special where you can try your first bottle and it's only $19.95 for a month's supply. So feel free to check that out as well. Some of the things that I like about the Verum that's compared to other CBD is that it actually has a really strong bioavailability because it's actually water soluble. So it's 100% water soluble. Most of them are fat-based, but this one's actually water soluble. And it's also very stable. It actually has a two-year shelf life. You don't have to refrigerate it. And it doesn't degrade in the stomach because of the way it's formulated. So it actually has these, it's nanostructured, but it's also within, it's encapsulated so that it can move all the way through the stomach and then it opens up so you get so much more of it in your body. And they actually have some really good research that supports this exact product, not just the idea of CBD in general, but this exact product really shows that it really is the most bioavailable. And it's the lowest effective cost because you're getting so much more CBD into your body versus the stuff that you're getting that's not getting in. You know, you might have the same amount in both capsules, but if it's not bioavailable, it's going to actually, a small percentage of it is going to get into your body. And so I love the Verum because so much of it does get in. All right, let's get to exercises now that you can do. So again, that three-legged stool is the spinal exercises, breaking the bad habits, and getting the chiropractic adjustments. So I want to teach you this one. It's called the Life Extension Exercises. And the acronym is YWLT. You will love this is what I like to do as the way to remember it. You will love this. And so I'm going to just demonstrate it for you. So the Y is when the arms are up in the air in the shape of a Y. And you want to just stretch the fingers all the way out up to the universe, out to the stars. And you're going to hold this so that your arms are not out in front of your head, but they're up in line with your ears. And you're going to just stretch them up, and you're going to just about 20 seconds and maybe taking some breaths in and out to do that. And then once that's the Y, the W is going down and putting your elbows into your back pockets, right? So elbows go down into the back pockets. You're squeezing the scapula together, your wing bones in the back together. And you're going to hold that for 20 seconds. And then the L is the elbows down to the side, and the hands, you want to be looking straight away out at the horizon, and then you want to not be able to see your fingers wiggling in your peripheral vision if you're looking straight ahead. So that is the L, and then the T is out to the side, same thing. You don't want to be able to see the fingers wiggling from your peripheral vision. So your hands are back. And so you want to hold each of the positions for 20 seconds and 1 round for every 2 hours of sitting. So if you brush your teeth twice a day, that helps your teeth last your whole life. And if you want your spine to last your whole life without deteriorating, then again, twice a day, the same way. And again, if you're going to be sitting, you want to do 1 round for every 2 hours of sitting. So if you're not sitting too much, then still do it twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. The second exercise I would like to show you is the wall nod. So with the wall nod, you're going to be standing against a wall, and you're going to have every part of your body, the heels, the buttocks, the shoulders, and the head against the wall. And then you're just going to look up, keeping your head against the wall, and then you're going to look down, keeping your head against the wall, up and down. And remember, your head is against the wall, keeping it against the wall as you do the nod. So if you do 5 nods up and down, then do that 2 sessions per day. And that's going to actually help to, again, reconcile the posture where we tend to have our head forward. All right. And so those are 2 great exercises to do for the neck. So how would you know if you had a subluxation? Well, it's simple. You just have to get checked. And so I want to just tell you a little bit more about our discovery process here in the office. And we have a consultation that we start with and then an exam. And when we are checking somebody, first thing is we want to talk with them about what are all the things that have accumulated over their lifetime that have resulted in the stresses in their neck. And so then we do an examination once we understand what their story is and what their health concerns are, their symptoms, their conditions, their goals. Then we're going to take all this information and bring it together, and we're going to determine how their nervous system is dealing with stress. So where there may be interference in the flow of their body's intelligence and the healing, and ultimately the root cause of their problem. And again, body signals, we're going to look at that, what kind of neck issues they have, and understand that so that we can correct the cause and not just treat the symptoms. So again, if you don't correct the cause, how can you get back to the health that you want and understand the root of the problem? So when we get together, we discuss the case, we go over all of our findings. The criteria we use, the objective criteria, is looking at instrumentation. So we literally have scans to measure nervous system function, measure the nerve supply to the muscles, the nerve supply to the organs. We do palpation and feel the alignment of the vertebra and whether they're moving or whether they're strapped down. We do posture analysis. The posture is the window to the spine. And then again, we may do some x-rays to look at how long has the subluxation been there and is there any degenerative change that has gotten a start. And so we do all of this and then we go over all of the results and we let you know whether or not we can help, what is going on, what's the cause of this, and if we can help, how long is it going to take and what's it going to cost. So we review all of that once we've gathered all the information. So that's our discovery process. It's 2 visits. The first visit, we gather the information. The second visit, we go over all of the results. And the cost of this in-house, it's usually about $210, which, can you imagine if we were doing all of these scans and getting all this information in the hospital, in the medical arena? It'd probably be $3,000, $5,000 for all that testing. And the tests that we do, they don't even offer them in the hospital, and yet it gives us the most information. And so, I mean, no wonder we have $2 trillion healthcare burden with the cost of medical expenses. But in our office, it's just a little over $200 for the regular exam. Right now, we do actually have an online special. So if you go to our website, wellspringcls.com, we do have some openings for our special website offer, which is capping the cost of the first visit at $47. So if that's interesting to you, then please take advantage of that. If you're not sure about that and you just want to connect with me and see if I can help, I'm happy to, again, to have a 10-minute conversation with you, and we can just schedule that. Just text us consult, and then we can arrange that. So again, if we look at the steps to correct the cause, it's going to be breaking the bad habits, adding the specific exercises, and the specific chiropractic adjustments. That is the only way to correct the subluxations, is with these specific chiropractic adjustments. Only chiropractors are trained to find and correct subluxations. It's the art and science of chiropractic. It's very specific. In our office, we use light touch, just the feeling of the amount of pressure you'd use if you touched your eyeball comfortably with your finger. That's how much pressure I use. So I don't do any of the forceful structural types of moves. Very rarely do I do that, because we get such great results by using the light touch technique to help your brain find where the subluxations are and help the brain start to unwind those subluxation patterns to realign things and return normal motion and function to the spine. And that then reduces the stress and interference in the nervous system. That normalizes the nervous systems, the input and the communication. It's safe and it's effective. It's actually, chiropractic is the largest drug-free approach in the world. And it's been used by millions of people getting adjusted regularly for over 100 years. So it is safe, it's effective. And so what about you? And what about the people you know and love? Is anybody checking their spine to see whether they have subluxation? So please share this with friends and family that are struggling with neck problems, because again, if they don't address it, it's not going to be good over time. And it is something that generally is correctable, especially if we catch it in time. So remember that so often some of the problems that occur with people's health is because they just wait too long. Procrastination is the thief of health. And so how do you know if you have a subluxation? You don't know, because it may be silent. You may not even have symptoms. So you have to get checked to know whether or not you have subluxations. So I encourage you to think about who you know that you could send our way to see if we can help. And you know, anybody that's wondering about their spine and nervous system, or their family, or their kids, or their friends, neighbors, coworkers, anybody that's struggling. Again, if you're like me, you're probably wondering what's going on inside right now and what can you do to help. So the next steps are easy then. Just reach out to us, just schedule a consult with us, either in the office, or we can do a virtual consult online as well. Happy to do that. And again, just remember, procrastination is the thief of health. And that's the number one reason we have a health crisis, is people just putting things off. So again, don't wait, because it's going to be worse over time. You know how things are. So thank you so much for your time and attention. So your action steps, we said in the beginning, we want people to take action steps. So again, do the exercises, do your life extension exercises, do the wall nod, really change the ergonomics, really think about that with all the different things that you're doing. If you don't have someone on your team getting your spine checked, then reach out to us. Get yourself scheduled for the headache workshop that's coming up next month, or share that with anybody that you know. And if you want a sample of Virum, again, just text Virum to our number, and we would love to help. So thank you so much for your time and attention this evening. I am going to now stop the recording,